Hello everyone, this is Phenometic here, and today I'm sure you read the title of this video as well as part of the title of the story that I'm going to be reading today. And I know what you're thinking, it's nothing gory. I want to emphasize that at the point of this, there is going to be, the only real trigger warning I'm probably going to provide for this story is just darker humor. But the spice of Joker probably being out of character. And I know that this title kind of seems strange, but I promise you it will make sense. I had purposely started off the miscellaneous one-shot book on my Wattpad page with Batman, because even though, granted, it's a very unorthodox start, I had thought that maybe it would be better that way, because while Batman may be a really strange choice to make, at least to me, compared to what I normally choose, at least I knew that I could probably start off with a bit. I suppose I could say that I was easing y'all into what's to come, and I technically am still doing that with this, because I'm gonna delve into it further at the end of the video. But basically, I honestly want to start delving into darker subjects on this channel. Nothing, of course, that would get me demonetized or even banned, but at least enough to the point where it's not the typical fluff and cuddles. So, granted, while this story doesn't have that element or those elements to it, I at least wanted to experiment with the Joker and everything. I even wrote a poem dedicated to the Heath Ledger Joker in one of my private diaries, just to kind of familiarize myself with the idea of writing for Joker, because he's a little bit harder for me to write, even more so than Batman. But regardless, this particular Batman is going to be this particular Joker, I made this more for the Joker from either the Arkham games. I think that's really the main way that I can describe it, because he's my personal favorite, aside from, the ranking is Heath Ledger's Joker, then Mark Hamill, and then Zach from, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, unfortunately, but from the Lego movie, or the Lego Batman movie. But I digress. This is a Joker X gender-neutral reader, and it is simply titled, Cutting Ears Off. Jay was working up in his office, running over some binary details he had with the deal involving Harv. You knew he was a busy man, so you understood completely. Oftentimes, when he was in his office or off doing chaos to all of Gotham, you had to find other ways to spend your time. So you recently decided to take up painting. You had never been too terribly interested in drawing when you were younger, as you would often get discouraged by the fact that you thought it was terrible. However, once you met Joker, you had decided to take up painting. After all, he used paint like makeup. So what a better medium to pick up? While you were mixing together some paints to get a dark green shade of sorts, you heard steps from the floor above you. You suppose it was Jay taking a small break. You knew that while it was true that he would wreak havoc on Gotham every so often with crazy contraptions and plans, one thing that not a lot of people would consider is that it actually takes a lot of time to figure out the finer details. Things like finding proper explosives and designing the machines that would cause the next wave of destruction. And these things would take a whole lot of deals with other supervillains both in and even out of Gotham. That's not even finding things like the men, women, or even kids to help solve the charade of these plans. So when you put it all together, it would often take months to get these things set up and make it all work so nice and eloquently. That would lead to the Joker spending hours, nights, days, and sometimes even weeks up in that extravagant office. He would make phone calls, draw plans or blueprints, etc. So needless to say, you were rather startled to hear him exit his office from above. You often felt your heart race whenever he would enter the room. Despite the fact that you two had been exclusive for some time, you couldn't help but feel a rush of sorts from him. To think you end up falling in love with the crazies? But were you to complain? No Wayne, Jose. I know that was terrible, I'm sorry. However, despite the rush of your heart, you remained seated. You were so close to finishing up this painting And you had grabbed another paintbrush and dipped it into a deep red color before applying 2 small brush strokes. Right when you set the paintbrush down, you heard your beloved clown himself knock on the door. The door was open, but even if it wasn't, he would have walked in anyway without waiting for a response. It reminded you of how a parent would do such, and normally would aggravate you if it were anyone else. And yet, since it was him, and since you loved him, which was fully reciprocated, you could never even dream of being mad about it. Yoo-hoo! He said in a musical tone. Hello, my little doll. What have you been doing while I was all alone? He said with a slight pout. Since he stood in the doorway and you sat in front of the painting, covering the majority of it, you decided to take advantage of his lack of vision. You smiled, turning your head around to look him from over your shoulder. Why don't you close your eyes so I can show you? He said with a lick of teasing. He smirked very clearly. Even with the red paint over his mouth, you could see that. Oh, now, dearest, I know better than anyone that a line like that is the oldest trick in the book. While that may be true, I promise you this is good. You held up a cocky mask, but a small part of you was hopeful he would agree with this. You never felt your painting skills were perfect. If you were quite frank, you had actually never shown any of the paintings you've made to him, but you would hope he would like it regardless of the quality. He sighed very dramatically. Very well, doll. You win. He then covered his eyes with his hands in a very childlike manner. It was so damn cute. You then grabbed the canvas and walked over, slowly and methodically, to him. You held it out and over you, shielding you from having to see the face he would make when he opened his eyes. But he swallowed your fear as best as he could and said, All right, you can open them. He swiftly removed his hands from his eyes. Needless to say, he was very happy with the painting. It was a painting of himself in all of his devious and dark glory. He couldn't help but laugh, cackle even. You pulled the canvas away from your face, looking up at him in confusion, but it was swiftly changed with a more bitter and sad expression. It's bad, isn't it? And that only seemed to make him laugh harder. Oh, no, doll. I have just been waiting for you to make a portrait for me for what feels like ages. At that, you couldn't help but blink a couple times in confusion. Wait, what do you mean waiting? I haven't... He was swift to cut you off. Oh, come now, dearest. You can surely guess how I know. He then stalked closer to you. You said you could try and hide this wonderful hobby of yours from me? I may be a tad bit crazy, but I could still see those little paints left on the little stains those paints left on those perfect hands of yours. Not to mention the amount of times you've done laundry to try and get those stains out. He stepped even closer, right in front of you. He leaned in really close to your ear. I can't help but feel a little hurt that you couldn't bring yourself to show me. He then looked down at the portrait of himself. I must say, this may be my new favorite painting, more so than the blue boy I have. At that, you looked up at him in shock. But that's been your favorite painting for ages. He ignored that and instead said, Who is that painter who cut off his ear and gave it to a prostitute? Van Gogh. Why? I just love that he cut his ear off. Very artistic for me. He may be my second favorite artist. Who's the first? He looked up at you with a big smile. He leaned back down to your ear, his breast tickling you. You. The next day, you found the painting you made of Joker was gone. Where was it, you may ask? In his office, of course. The end. I'm actually quite pleased with how this story turned out. I actually feel like that I was relatively spot on with Joker's characteristics, and even for me that's relatively impressive because I've only ever read about a couple fan fictions based off of him, and it was actually pretty fun doing the concepts for this. I actually have like 3 whole pages full of concepts for this stuff. I really hope that all of you guys like this, and it was so much fun to make, and I at least plan 1 of 2 next Joker stories to come out soon. One of them may be a bit darker in contrast. I'm probably gonna have to include some trigger warnings, but that'll come, and I'll decide that once I get the plot points figured out. Thank you all so very much for watching, and as always, this is Friend of Murder, and I'll be seeing you all very soon. Bye-bye!